All right, thank you all for joining us again for another Keystroke Live presentation. I'm Mike Tabor. If you haven't seen or met me before, we're going to be going over the forms editor today in the Keystroke POS dealer bundle. Again, this is our Keystroke Live. We do this every Wednesday. We're going to have it again every Wednesday at 10 o'clock, same time, same place. There'll be the same meeting ID, and we do send out reminders via email. Very shortly here, I'm going to go ahead and mute all the attendees except for myself. And if you have any comments or concerns while I'm speaking, please go ahead and send me a little chat note at the bottom of your screen, and I'll try to see if I can answer it while we're talking. Then we'll open up for some discussion and question and answer time near the end of this. We usually take about 15 minutes or so to go over the information, and we'll get started. Again, today we're going to go over the Keystroke Forms Editor. This is a dealer-only tool. It's part of the Keystroke POS dealer bundle. We include this as a tool for dealers only, so you can add value during your installations. You can create custom forms for your clients and give them some extra information or extra kind of customization that they couldn't get with the regular Keystroke program. This is going to be our curriculum for today. We're going to talk about the different sections of the forms editor, and I'll show you that shortly here. We're going to go over the header section at the top of a form, the body section, which is the looping of line items, and the summary section, usually invoice totals, shipping, and discounts. We'll talk about the different field flags. These are our term for turning on features of forms. Some of the features are barcodes. You can turn on graphics. You can print logos. You can do other things like skip lines if they're blank and so forth. And we're going to talk about looping fields. In Keystroke right now, besides our body section, which is always a looping field for every line item, we have other looping fields, and they include payments, where you can have multiple payments on an invoice. We also have taxes, tax loops, where you can put different tax districts. Let's say you do ball deposits, it would be one example, or if you want to break out your state and county taxes or local taxes, you can do that on forms also. And also we'll talk about the print options, which are the print codes, we call them. And that's pretty much how you change the font sizes and things like you can even change colors if you wanted to print something in a different color. All right, I'm going to go into Keystroke here and we'll talk about the Forms Editor. Okay, and I'll try not to go too fast through this as there is some delays as I get started. We'll go ahead and clerk in. The Forms Editor is part of the dealer tools, and it's under the extensions menu. If I click on extensions, I see our regular extensions here, but if I double click extensions, I get to see the actual custom modules, and this can also be found from any other module under the exit menu under custom, and I'll show you that as we go back and forth between Sales Manager and the Forms Editor. Let's just jump right into the Forms Editor, and we're going to go in and look at how it opens up. First thing it tells you, it's a dealer-only module, so this is really only part of your dealer copy. You can use our program called DoleU if you'd like to. If you're on site and you'd like to use the Forms Editor temporarily, you can license it at your client's site, and then you can run DoleU again to unlicense it as you leave the site. When you open this Forms Editor, you get the choice of which type of forms. Today we're going to be talking just about sales invoices and receipts and quote forms. These all end with the .nvc extension. There are other form options like payments. There's purchase orders. We have statement forms that you can customize, ROA receipts, time clock, clock in and clock out forms. We also have the production reports, which are forms you can print in production, and store transfers. And somebody asked more about DoleU. We have a document called dolu.doc in the Keystroke doc folder on your installation. It's a tool. It's a dealer-only licensing utility. Allows dealers to give a temporary license to at their client site while they're there. The intent is not to leave without removing that temporary license. So you can use Dolu for that. Thanks for the question, Logan. Let's look at some of our standard forms here. I'm going to page down here to the Ks. We have a lot of KSP forms. These have been around Keystroke for a long time. And I'm going to go down to the forms that we recently created. One is called KSP Logo A, and there's a KSP Logo B. These are forms that we created when we added the ability to print logos on forms, or a company logo. So I'll go ahead and pull this form up. This is what the forms editor looks like here. It's kind of a representation of what the form is going to look like when printed. It has the different field names on it. And in order to add a field, I'm going to just move my cursor downward here and we'll go back over these fields. I would put the cursor in the location I'd like it to be. I would hit the Insert or F2 key to bring up a list of options. Currently right now we're in the header section. You can see in the lower right of the screen, just below the word amount down here, it says header 17. That means I'm in the header section. I'm on column 1, line 7. I would hit Insert. This brings up a list of the different fields available. These are usually in the header section are things like customer information, your company name and address, contact information. There's invoice information and so forth, usually dollar amounts or total dollar amounts. And some different things. You can actually, and we'll talk about payment loops in the summary section a little later. Anyhow, you would just pick a field and hit Enter on it, and then it would put that field in there with the default formatting. As you can see, it's highlighted in yellow. If I want to make this field wider, I can use a combination of keys, or I can go up to the field options at the top. So here you can look at the different options. I can change its width by using the Control key plus the left or right arrow. I can change its alignment if I want it to be left, centered, or right justified, and E is actually centered because we use Control C for the copy command. Control A is an absolute that just says it's going to be on this line regardless of what other lines come before it. Print codes, we'll go over those, skip blank, and so forth. So if I wanted to make it wider, I could use my Control key and do Control right arrow. That makes this field wider. Or if I know the price tables I'm using are just one character, I might make it a one character field. And I can move this by using the left and right arrow keys now. I can move this and put it in place. So maybe I want to put it right next to the customer's number, just kind of as a code over here. And in this form here now, I would have the actual customer number, and right next to it I would have its price table. Again, if that's one character, so if I wanted to make it a little bit bigger, I would go ahead and add a little bit more here. And you'll see kind of due to the line draw characters using a different font, they don't line up, and that's kind of an art form of the forms editor, kind of finding out the right length. But also knowing, looking at the bottom, where my cursor is going to be. If I move my cursor to this bar on the right-hand side, at the bottom it says header 89, which is 80, which is it's in column 80 of this form, which is an 80-column full-page receipt. Anyhow, I'm going to go ahead and show you how this form would possibly be used by just showing you a printout. I'm going to not save this form at this time. Yeah, actually, I think I will. I'm going to go ahead and save this as Logo X. And I just went to the Forms menu at the top and select Save. So we go to File Name, say OK. Now I'm going to want to use this by going into Configuration Manager, under Tables and Print Buttons. This is for SM for Sales Manager. This is a full-page invoice, so I'll select the Invoice Print button. I'm going to change the form from the existing KSP Logo A to the KSP Logo X form I just created by just adding a price table to it. This is going to print to the screen, and bear with me, as this prints to the screen I'll have to make sure I direct the output to the right place. I'm just saving all of this now. Going to Sales Manager. I'm going to reprint an existing receipt, one I've already created earlier today. And let's see, does this customer have a price table? They have an asterisk as a price table. Let's go ahead and, let's go ahead and just print that the way it is. So I'm going to hit enter on OK, and this is the print button I set up to use that form. And I'm hoping now you can see, there's the printed out report. This is, again, we're using the company logo in the upper left. This is a 8.5 by 11 invoice here. We've added next to the customer number on the right hand side the asterisk. That's the price table field I put on there. And if we see this in a full screen, here I'll try to scroll down, or better yet, this is what this form would actually look like. There's the line draw characters. We have the header section is at the top here. That includes the product code, item description, quantity, headers. The body section we'll go back to is just the line items and how they will print. Down at the bottom of the screen, you'll see the summary section. That's usually the long line across the bottom with the subtotals and so forth, including discounts, shipping, tax, and so forth. In this case, we have one payment on this form. But I'd like to do a new sale. I'm going to go ahead and go back here. I'm going to do a new sale. This time, we're going to save this and pull up a different customer. And let's give them a preferred customer discount, a price table. Oh, let's just put some things on here. And let's say they have two different payments. Maybe they're going to give us $20 in cash, because that's what they have. And we're going to select the rest as on account to put it on their account for the remaining $15.24. And now we'll print the same invoice I created. And here again we see the customer number at the top, customer number 26 with a P next to it means they're a preferred customer. If I show this in full screen, again I'm hoping you see this. Oh, my fault there. What am I doing here? Okay. And down here at the bottom, you'll see different payments. Down at the bottom, you see the words due upon receipt is the actual terms field for on-account payments. Paid cash is what they paid in cash. So this is a looping field down at the bottom, and we'll go back and see how those work. Let's go back into Keystroke. Let me close these report viewers. Okay. I'm going to go back to the custom modules. Again, you can get there from the exit menu up here and go to custom, or you can go back to the navigation menu, double click on extensions, and select Forms Editor. Let's talk about the same form there. I'm going to page down to the same form, KSP Logo X. If I look at the sections options, we have the body section. This is the middle or the line item section. So if I go there, this is kind of its own looping section, meaning here we have the product code at the top. It's in a width of 20. You'll see it down at the bottom of the screen. It says product code 20L, body 11, which means it's a 20 character wide field. It's left justified. The description field is 30 characters left justified. Here's a quantity ordered field, and it's right justified in 5 characters. So sometimes people that sell very expensive things need more than 5 characters because 3 of those characters are already taken up just by the 3 characters are taken up by the period and the cents. So that only leaves in this form up to a quantity. I'm sorry, this is a quantity field, not a price field. Price field, there you go, there's a 10 character field. And then we have the price extension. The comment, if we did a line item comment, this comment field, I'll hit enter on it. I'm going to hit F3 to edit this field. And this is a comment field, and this is where the field flags come into play. I'm going to hit insert in the field flags to show you what different options you might have. Some sections don't support all the options. That's why you might see these star characters. That means that option is not supported in the body section. But this comment is turned on. I could also do things like components, where I can actually have the scripted item where its components can start printing below it. And you can change the font and so forth on that. Things like skip line if blank, that wouldn't really apply in the body section. Some of these other things like print as graphics file, that is kind of how we do our logos. So I'm going to just show you that there's a bunch of field flags. We do actually have an F1 help screen. And let's pull that up just quickly here. This just talks about the different numbering scheme and so forth. And you can see that we have some more detailed information as to what some of the other ones, like remove printed characters and so forth, and print as graphics files. So you can kind of find out more about that. Back to, alrighty, here we go. Back to Keystroke. That's the body section. I'm going to kind of move on and show you the summary section. If we go up to the top under the sections menu, we have the summary section. Looks like a bunch of blank space. What we've done here is we've left blank space in here, and I'm arrowing down. You can see my cursor going down to the bottom. I'll just bring it all up so we can see here. So this right here, my cursor is now on line number 50. You can see that on the bottom right. It is showing you that this is an absolute field. I'm going to hit enter on this field. This is where the lines are. Whoops. So actually I've selected that field. I'm going to hit F3 to edit this field. And there's the field text. Is just a bunch of lines. Kind of shows differently as it's showing as different ASCII fields. We could change the print codes. We could actually say I want that line to be bold or emphasized. So I could turn on the bold and turn off the bold, meaning when I turn it on, actually I'm going to do it a little different. I'm going to turn on the bold, leaving the bold off, not turned on. And it creates a number for the print codes, 256. And then, so I've turned on bold from here, from line 50. Everything that follows it will also be bold until I get to the very end. And here I'm going to the change field. I'm going to hit enter on that. It's the last field in this section. I'm going to hit F3 on it. By hitting F3, I'm going to go back to the print codes. I'm going to hit insert, and I'm going to page down and find bold off. By turning the bold off here, the next thing that prints on this printer won't be in bold. If I print a report to it, I won't have a bold report. If I print another invoice, a second invoice, I won't start seeing the bold repeating and so forth on those forms. So you always want to make sure for every on there's an off. Our rule is usually if you're going to do this, you should select every field, turn the on and off on for every field, because you can get some undesirable results if you don't do it exactly that way. Alright, so let me show you this while I'm here. These are form messages. We recommend that you use form messages instead of hard coding in information into the form. A lot of your customers want a disclaimer or some kind of comment at the bottom that returns are only accepted 30 days with the original receipt, or thank you for shopping, go to our website at www.keystrokepos.com, something like that. Well, instead of hard coding it on the form, because the day you hard code it on the form is the day they say I want to change my disclaimer or my return policy. And so we actually use these form messages. I'm going to add a fourth one here. I'm going to first move these up just to see what happens. I'm hitting enter on these lines. I'm moving them upward, and I'm hitting enter to release them. Yellow means they're selected. Move them up and hit enter. Now let's say I want to hit insert here and add another form message. So I hit insert to bring up my list of fields. Form messages is a very unique field. When I hit enter on it, it'll actually show me the form messages which are in Configuration Manager, which we can actually change. So I'm going to add this line 4. Now this talks about a quote, but we're going to change that shortly here. I'm just going to hit enter on it. And now I'm going to release it. So this form now has 4 form messages. You can actually change the width of these if you'd like to move them over and create more space. I'm using the control keys again to create more space. I'm selecting it, moving it to the left, control right arrow, moving it back to make more space. You can also make these fields condensed. If you'd like to really pack in a big disclaimer or return policy, you can make these fields condensed if you'd like. But in this case, I'm not going to do that, just so we can see how they work. All right, so now I'm going to save my form. And if the form already exists, it's going to give you a message that the form exists. Would you like to override it? That's normal. You cannot override any of our standard forms, though. You do need to use your own unique names. I'm going to go now to Configuration Manager and show you how the form messages work. In Configuration Manager, under the Settings menu, we have Form Messages. By hitting Enter on the form message here, this is where you get to modify these. So let's say oops. Yeah, we have a good turnout today. So this is where you would put in your oops, sorry about that, typos. Here, let's just take this little guy here, controls, and bring it up here. Okay, so now I've created lines 1 through 4 in my form messages. If you ever want to know what our default forms are set up for, you can always hit the F1 key here, and it talks about, I need to change my screen here. This is the F1 help screen on the form messages, and it talks about they can be 99 single lines up to 128 characters. Down here at the bottom, you'll see that lines 1, 2, and 3 are used on standard 8.5 by 11 sales invoices. 4 and 5 are on quotes. 6, 7, and 8 are on purchase orders. Let's see, receipts. Receipts are on 14, 15, and 16 for 40-column receipts. You'll also notice credit cards have their own lines, 20, 21, and 22. There was a Yahoo post about having to edit a form in order to put in a signature line. Well, you really didn't have to, because all of our standard forms for credit cards put in 20, 21, and 22. I'm going to close this help screen. Back to Keystroke. So now if I go down to 20, 21, and 22, this is kind of our tutor data, and this is what we put in there. So here's the signature line. We've actually put it in this form. We've put in some verbiage you might see on the standard credit card form. I agree to pay the above amount and so forth. If that verbiage changes, or Visa, MasterCard says you need to put this on a receipt and they change their policy and you want to put it on a receipt, the dealer doesn't need to necessarily come back and change the wording as long as we're using form messages. That's why they're the recommended way to use this. So let's go print some receipts and see what we've done here. Back to Sales Manager. I'm going to reprint that existing receipt, that invoice that we just did with 2 payments. Oh, where'd it go? There it is. Okay, so here's this here, and let's just scroll down to the bottom. So now it looks like I must have typoed, but anyhow, this is where I've made the bottom a little bit wider. I could have made that condensed. Probably would have looked nicer if I did make it condensed, or maybe not so long, and run it into the side here. But anyhow, this is what the form messages are. This is lines 1, 2, 3, and 4 at the bottom. The thank you, come again, we just kind of cut and pasted from a receipt. You could use all the space up top here too. Keep in mind that these looping fields, like the $20 cash payment and the $15.24 cash due upon receipt payment, those looping fields might get in the way of form messages. So I recommend you don't put form messages on the same lines as looping fields, just for that reason. So this is kind of how the full form would look, and I probably could make it a little prettier if I edited the form messages. and so forth. All right, back to Keystroke. I think we're back to Keystroke. I'm going to print, let's go ahead and reprint a receipt here. I want to show you, we talked about form messages. Here's a credit card I had done earlier. And I'm going to print a credit card receipt to the screen. And let me ask anybody here, I'm going to unmute for right now. Can you all see the report viewer at this time? Can anyone say yes or no they can see it?
Yes. Yeah, I can see it.
Okay, because sometimes I have to switch back and forth. Thank you very much. Okay. Back here to this screen here, so this would be a credit card receipt. Here we have the credit card number masked. We have the amount, the approval code, the cardholder name. That's a new feature in version 7. People have been waiting for the cardholder name. That's an actual field on the form you can put in there. This whole section is a looping field, meaning if you took 2 credit cards to pay off a transaction, you would see these 3 lines looping twice for every credit card. And you can see at the bottom of this screen, this is the signature line that we've added. I agree to pay the total amount according to the card issuer agreement. Whatever that wording is, or if you just want to put a signature line and that's all you need to do. And this receipt would kind of be printed looking more like that. All right, one last thing. Let's take a look at, we did a credit card receipt. Another receipt, some of the receipts we have already that have the word logo in them use our company logo. I'm going to do just a regular receipt. I think I'm using our star logo form. And this uses the company logo. It's a Keystroke Advanced feature where you can use a company logo for reports, for the same logo can be used on almost anywhere in the program, and it's a variable, so you can put it on, just one graphic can be used on all your forms, all your reports, all your statements, all your purchase orders, and so forth, so you don't have to spend all the time placing that logo on every single form and so forth. It's a nice feature. This shows just a regular receipt. It does not have a signature line. It uses lines 14, 15, and 16. That's why you see the thank you come again at the bottom. It does have a payment loop, this MasterCard payment. If you had more than one payment, it would just show it here. It does not have approval codes or a signature line. We'll go back to the forms editor here. Just to finish up, we wanted to talk about, I just want to show you some of the new forms that we have that ship with the program today in version 7. Let's look at the star forms. As you know, we've always used the word star because of the Star Micronics printers. That can be used on any Epson printer, Bixelon, Samsung, any receipt printer. Well, we have the star logo A here. This is a form I think we just printed with to show you the logo at the top. I'll just hit enter on it. This is where we use this variable called logo. It's actually %logo %. If we hit F3 on it and we hit insert here, this is where we see the field flag down here called print as a graphics file. This feature is also in regular Keystroke. If you want to just point out a graphics file, you can actually have the text say like C:\\keystroke / mylogo.jpg, and it will work just fine doing it that way. But then you have to call it the logo in every place on the form instead of in one place in Configuration Manager. Somebody asked a good question about printing receipts and how you tell a printer to cut. And I'll just quickly go to that while we're here in a receipt. In the summary section, usually on the very last line, as I page down or arrow down, this one I guess doesn't have one, so I am going to put one in here. Actually, I'm going to look up a different form. Most all of our store forms have this, so I will make sure we get this fixed. I'm going to go to just like our star.nvc. I'm going to go to the section, the summary section here. And as I page down, these characters have been in the program for a while. They're actually not used to do the cutting. But this last character here, if we look at this last character and we hit enter on it and hit F3 to look at it, we have some print codes. And if I hit insert here, if I page down through these, we've actually turned on code 10 on and off. This is a way to send different codes to the printer. We actually put in the printer driver, like the SP300 driver or the Epson TM driver actually has the actual cut codes, and we call them out here. So this actually says, go ahead and send something. We don't know what it is, but the driver will tell it what to send. A lot of the printers now, because we want to use these logos, we actually have to print directly to a, let me rephrase that, we have to print to a Windows printer. We do not use the direct to Windows printer, which would send these codes. So in order to get the best of both worlds, like a logo and the cutting, you would have to have the correct Windows driver, tell the Windows driver to actually do the cutting for you, and then the graphics can be printed and barcodes could be printed. So you can have a receipt with a barcode on it. And speaking of that, let's go ahead and pull up another form. It is called KSP, there it is, KSP logo B. B is for barcode, for lack of a better term. It also has the logo on it. So here is a form that's going to print the logo in the upper left as before. And if we go to the right here, I'm going to look at this invoice number here. If I hit enter on this invoice number and hit F3, we're using the same alignment codes we would use in Label Manager to print barcodes. The B8 here represents a code 128 barcode. The 321 talks about its width, its height, and I think its ratio. But 321 is a nice big barcode, easily seen and scanned. Let's go to the body section of this item. Here we have the product code, its description, and then we have the product code again. If we hit enter on this product code, hit F3, it's also using the B8321. So let's go print this. This is a kind of a good template that you can use for printing barcodes. Let's go to Sales Manager, pull up an existing receipt. Oh, I don't know what I did here. Let me go set up the print button. Sorry, I'm bouncing around. I want to try to get all this in here. Okay, let's just change the invoice form for this example. Okay, I'm going to pick the KSP logo B form. Back to Sales Manager. Let's pull up that invoice. Now I'm going to select the print button for invoice, and now this invoice is going to have two barcodes on it. Up here is the invoice barcode, and this could be put on a receipt, so you can have the invoice number, and this will come in handy when we add the returns feature that should be coming. We've already added the search feature where you can actually scan this barcode in our search function, and it'll pull it right up and pull up that invoice. It'll be a direct hit that people don't have to go look for it and everything. On the lower left here, you can see the items. This is the item's product code being barcoded. I see this more in use for like serial numbers, for instance. People might want to put their serial numbers of items that they sell as barcodes. So that's how the barcodes work. Again, our form is KSP logo B if you want to try to use that. I'm going to try to wrap up real quick here with one last comment on tax loops. We have a form, we have a form here in the Forms Editor called Star Tax F. And the Star Tax is for, it's a tax looping field. Bear with me here, there it is. Oh, where'd it go? Okay, Star Tax F. This is going to show you the summary section again. And down here we have the district name as a looping field. If I hit enter on this to select it, hit F3 to edit it, you'll see here in the field flags, if I hit insert to bring up the list, it's a tax district loop. So if you have a state tax and then you have a county tax or a city tax, you can loop it that way. In our tutor data, we have some bottle deposits. I'll just use it for that reason. So that's a looping field there. Notice that every field in here is a looping field. Even if you put characters in here, you want them to loop. So the field flags is a tax loop. And this last field, this is the little trick here. If I hit enter on this, this is a space character, this little dot. This dot is a space character. If I hit F3 on it, it does not have any looping. What this does is it tells it this is the stopping of the loop. Do not continue to loop past this. So basically you get everything on this line looping. Same thing with the payment loop term. So if you have multiple payments, they'll loop and the tax will loop. Let's go give this a try. Let's set up my print button real quick. I'm racing right through this. So, all right, star tax F is my form. So you don't need to see what I'm doing if there's a delay. Let's go right to Sales Manager. Let's pick somebody that's got a tax rate. Let's pick some of the Pepsi items. They actually have bottle deposits. They're using a tax table here called 4. It's a case, so they're going to be charged, I guess, 30 cents or something for CRV tax. So let's go ahead and pay for that. Let's pay cash, and let's say we pay $20. And then we're going to print the receipt. So here's our tax loop. In the middle of this screen here, it shows a sales tax of 99 cents, and there's actually $1.20 cent bottle deposit. I guess it's 5 cents per can, and there's 24 in a case, so that would be $1.20, I guess. So that's how the tax districts will loop themselves. Now notice here it says CRV bottle deposit. That, and it's missing a, let's say, it was a colon there. That's just actually part of the tax district's name, so I can modify that here. Back in Keystroke, back to Configuration Manager, Tables, Tax. Let's go to Districts. I've got this district called B for bottle deposit. If I just put a colon on here, that's the tax district name, and that's the exact text that's going to loop. Back to Sales Manager. I want to kind of wrap up here in the next 2 minutes. So I'm going to reprint this last receipt here. And here's how you'll see I just added that colon in there, so it kind of looks a little prettier. Well, I'm going to go ahead and unmute everybody. If people have questions, I'd like to spend a few minutes and answer any questions. Feel free to call us on our support line if you have questions on this. The Forms Editor is kind of a art form. Those experienced dealers that have used it before kind of know that it kind of takes a little trial and error. And once you've done it a few times, you end up creating your own nice forms, and you like to use them on almost every install. Well, great. Do we have any questions? If not, I will go ahead and go back where... Yes. Anybody? Well, thank you for the time. Remember that we are doing this every week. So remember to come back next week. Jay's going to be going over report editing, label editing, and all the fun and stuff you can do in reports and formulas and things like that. I can't tell. Well, thank you all. If you don't have any questions, I'll go ahead and call this the end here. Thank you for your time, and call us on our 800 number if you have any questions. Have a good day.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Yeah.